In the heart of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where modern skyscrapers stood beside ancient traditions, a man rose to prominence, Prophet Elisha, a figure revered by thousands and feared by many. His church, the Divine Sanctuary of Heaven, started as a modest gathering but grew into a vast empire. The church's headquarters, a massive structure with majestic pillars, was a beacon of hope for some and a symbol of deceit for others. Prophet Elisha was no ordinary preacher. His sermons were legendary, his voice commanding, and his presence overwhelming. He spoke of miracles, of divine interventions, and of a power granted to him by God himself. The people believed, for the prophet delivered what he promised, or so it seemed. Central to Prophet Elisha's ministry were the miraculous items he claimed to have brought from the Garden of Eden. Just to mention a few, the most famous among these was the water of life, a liquid he said flowed from the rivers of Eden, capable of curing any illness and even raising the dead. Another was the fruit of universal unlimited knowledge, an apple he claimed was plucked from the tree of knowledge, granting those who ate it unparalleled wisdom. The prophet's followers, captivated by his words and desperate for miracles, paid exorbitant sums for these items. They believed in his power, in his connection to the divine, and in the promises he made. To them, he was not just a man but a bridge between heaven and earth. Yet, behind the facade of holiness, Prophet Elisha was a master of deception. He understood the fears and desires of his followers and manipulated them with precision. He silenced his critics with threats, intimidation, and sometimes worse. His church was more than a place of worship. It was a fortress of power, where questioning the prophet was akin to questioning God. David was an activist, a man who had dedicated his life to exposing the truth and fighting against oppression. Unlike many others, he had not grown up under the shadow of Prophet Elisha's church. In fact, he had never set foot inside the church. His life had taken a different path, one that led him to the front lines of social justice, where he had seen firsthand the damage caused by those who wielded power without accountability. One evening, while scrolling through social media, David stumbled upon a clip of Prophet Elisha's online ministering. In the video, the prophet stood before his congregation, holding up a vial of the water of life. His voice, filled with conviction, echoed through the speakers. "This is the water from the Garden of Eden, the very essence of life itself. It can heal the sick, cure the incurable, and even raise the dead. With this water, there is nothing that is impossible." David watched as people in the comments praised the pastor, thanking him for his miracles, for healing their loved ones, for solving their problems. The more he watched, the more his anger grew. He saw through the charade, recognizing the manipulation, the exploitation of vulnerable people who were desperate for hope, for miracles, for something to believe in. The next video was even more outrageous. In it, Prophet Elisha held up an apple, shiny, red, and perfect in every way. "This," he said, "is the fruit of universal unlimited knowledge. It comes from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. One bite, and you will possess the wisdom of the ages, knowledge beyond human understanding." David could no longer remain silent. He had seen many forms of exploitation in his work, but this was different. This was a man who claimed to be a messenger of God, using religion to prey on the fears and hopes of the masses. It was deceit on a grand scale, and it had to be stopped. David began to research Prophet Elisha, digging into his past, his rise to power, and the impact of his ministry. The more he learned, the more disturbed he became. He found stories of people who had sold everything they had to buy the pastor's miraculous items, only to find that their problems remained unsolved. He read accounts of families torn apart, of people who had lost their homes, their savings, and some may have lost their lives in pursuit of the miracles the prophet promised. Determined to expose the truth, David started to speak out on social media, posting his findings, questioning the legitimacy of Prophet Elisha's claims, and calling on others to join him in demanding accountability. His posts quickly gained traction, attracting attention from both supporters and detractors. But David knew that exposing Prophet Elisha online was only the first step. The prophet's influence was vast, and his followers were fiercely loyal. To truly bring him down, David needed to take the fight to the next level. David went on to purchase a few of the spiritual items from the Divine Sanctuary of Heaven webpage. He bought a few of the Water of Life and went ahead to put it to the test, administering it to some group of disabled persons. David was not surprised that the Water of Life failed to work as was preached and advertised by the great man of God. David also uploaded this experiment online, causing more pressure and tension. Prophet Elisha was not a man who tolerated dissent. When news of David's posts reached him, he knew that he had to act quickly to silence this threat. He called a meeting with his inner circle, a group of trusted advisors who had been with him since the early days of his ministry. "This young man David," the prophet said, his voice low and menacing, "he is trying to destroy everything we have built. He is spreading lies, trying to turn the people against us. We cannot allow this to continue." One of the advisors, a man named Pastor Gideon, nodded in agreement. "We have dealt with dissenters before, Papa. We can handle this. But this David is different. He is not just some disgruntled follower. He is an outsider, an activist. His words carry weight and people are listening to him." Pastor Elisha's eyes narrowed. "Then we must discredit him. Make him out to be a liar, a fraud, someone who is out to destroy the church for his own gain. Use the media, use our contacts, do whatever it takes to silence him." The prophet's advisors went to work, launching a campaign to discredit David. They flooded social media with posts attacking his character, accusing him of being an agent of the devil, a man driven by jealousy and hatred of the church. They paid off journalists to write articles painting David as a troublemaker, someone who was trying to undermine the faith of the people. But David was not easily intimidated. He had faced powerful opponents before, and he knew how to stand his ground. He continued to post his findings, undeterred by the attacks. He reached out to other activists, to lawyers, to anyone who could help him build a case against Prophet Elisha. The prophet, seeing that his initial attempts to silence David were failing, decided to take a more direct approach. He sent a group of his most loyal followers to confront David in person, hoping to intimidate him into backing down. One evening, as David was leaving a meeting with some fellow activists, he found himself surrounded by a group of men. They were large, imposing, and clearly not there to have a friendly conversation. "You need to stop what you're doing," one of them said, his voice low and threatening. "You're messing with things you don't understand. The prophet Papa is a man of God. You're just a troublemaker." David didn't flinch. He had expected something like this. "I'm not afraid of you," he said calmly. "The truth is on my side. You can't silence me." The men exchanged glances, and one of them stepped forward. "You're playing with fire, David. Papa has powerful friends in high places. You're going to get burned." David met his gaze without fear. "Maybe, but I'm not going to stop. This is bigger than me, bigger than any of us. People deserve to know the truth." The confrontation ended without violence, but the message was clear. Prophet Elisha was not going to back down easily. The battle between the two was just beginning, and it was a battle that would soon spill over into the courts, into the media, and into the hearts and minds of the people. The confrontation between David and Prophet Elisha had reached a boiling point. The prophet, accustomed to silencing his critics with intimidation, decided to take a more strategic approach this time. He was aware that David was different from the others who had questioned him before. This young man was relentless, and his accusations were gaining traction. Prophet Elisha's advisors had warned him that David's campaign could not be ignored. The prophet knew that his usual tactics of threats and intimidation might not be enough. David was not just some disgruntled follower. He was an outsider, an activist who had no fear of the church's power. In a move to regain control, Prophet Elisha decided to take the first legal strike. He instructed his team of high-powered lawyers to file a defamation lawsuit against David. The lawsuit accused David of spreading malicious lies intended to tarnish the prophet's reputation and damage the church's standing in the community. News of the lawsuit spread quickly, and it became a topic of intense discussion both in the media and among the public. To many, it was a classic case of a powerful figure trying to silence a critic through legal means. To others, it was a necessary step to protect the integrity of the church and its leader. David was not surprised when he received the court summons. He had anticipated that the prophet would retaliate, but he was determined not to be intimidated. He immediately began preparing his defense, and filed a counterclaim, accusing the prophet of fraud and exploitation, gathering evidence to prove that his criticisms were based on truth. As the legal battle commenced, David found himself in a fight that was much larger than he had expected. The prophet's legal team was formidable, and they spared no expense in trying to discredit David. They painted him as a troublemaker, an agent of chaos who was driven by jealousy and a desire to destroy the church. But David was undeterred. He continued to gather evidence and rallied support from other activists who had witnessed some of these deceits firsthand from other prophets and pastors that carried themselves as men of God. The lawsuit against him became a platform to expose the truth about Prophet Elisha's fraudulent practices. Prophet Elisha, on the other hand, continued to maintain his innocence in public, portraying himself as a victim of an unjust smear campaign. His sermons became more intense, filled with rhetoric about the forces of evil trying to bring down the church. His followers, fiercely loyal, stood by him, attacking anyone who dared to support David. The legal battle quickly became a national spectacle, with the media closely following every development. The public was divided, with some people supporting David's fight for truth, while others believed that Prophet Elisha was being unfairly targeted. As the court case progressed, it became clear that this was not just a legal battle, but a struggle for the truth itself. Prophet Elisha had initiated the lawsuit to silence David, but instead, it had opened the door to a much larger confrontation, one that would challenge the very foundations of faith, power, and integrity in the society. The story does not end here. The trial is yet to begin, and the outcome remains uncertain. The battle between David and Prophet Elisha is far from over, and the consequences of their clash will reverberate far beyond the walls of the courtroom. We may continue this tale another time, as the saga of truth and deception unfolds.